record button so that we can get going. So everyone, welcome to this session. This evening, we are talking about raising children with flexible, resilient brains. I wonder why you want to do that. However, before we go into that, I would like to thank all of you for being here. I appreciate your allocating the time being here, especially if you are already moms or dads. It's a challenge because about this time, it's the time that you typically put your children to sleep, or I say you attempt to put your children to sleep, and it depends on whose will is greater. It depends on how influential you are with respect to your child, whether the child goes to sleep willingly or kicking and screaming. Does that sound familiar? So those of you all who already have children, I really appreciate your making this time to be here. And if at any time you are being called SOS or emergency by your child, go ahead and go to attend to that. So there are a few people who do not yet have children. There are also people who are learning this for the future. So I would like to welcome all of you to this session this evening. Now, getting started to this session, we talk about raising children with flexible, resilient brains. Now, uh, why do we want to have flexible, really resilient brains? One reason that I can think of, it's just that our children are going to grow up into a world that we have no knowledge of. Let's say right now, 2020, in 20 years' time, if you have a child uh, who's a newborn, if you have a child who's a newborn, what will happen is that in 20 years' time, that's when he becomes an adult. Can we imagine what the world will be in 20 years' time? We can't imagine. Yeah, for example, this COVID thing that we are going through right now, nobody predicted that. Not to say nobody, but people in the field of the study of viruses and epidemics, they have already made some expectation that something like this is going to occur. However, for people like us, we have no idea what happened. And similarly with our children. So the reason why we want our child to have a brain that is flexible and resilient is so that as the child grows into the world that the child uh, is experiencing, the child can continue to adapt and adopt that new world that they are living in. Things are going to change, and things are going to change so fast. The word that I think I used that yesterday evening. Oh, yeah, yesterday in another presentation. The rate of change is accelerating. Dr. Richard Buckminster Fuller used the term accelerating acceleration. We are not talking about accelerating or acceleration of speed, but the acceleration itself is accelerating. You are talking about double speed. So things are not accelerating in a linear fashion. It is exponential. So that's how fast things are changing. So that's why we want our children to be able to have flexible, they are flexible in their way of thinking so that they can be resilient in terms of when things come to them, they can adjust and adapt and then move on. Now, they are built for that. They are already built for that because when they are born, a child's brain is under construction. Uh, at the uh, at the point of birth, a child's brain is about 50% of adult size. By the time a child reaches the age of 50% adult size, however, fully functioning. Yeah. Not to say that it has to wait for some parts of the brain to function. By the time the child reaches the age of 6, 0 to 6, the child's brain has grown from 50% adult size to 90% adult size. That's how fast. You're talking about 80% growth in the first in the first 6 years of the child's life. So that's why you see little children, they have big heads, small bodies. It's to carry that brain. It's 90% of adult size. And from 6 years onwards, there is that additional 10% growth. And what's happening is that the wiring is happening. As the child experiences the world, the brain is creating the wiring inside that to take care of what the child is learning. Now, if you want your child to develop a flexible and resilient brain, then you need to create the world that will stimulate its growth. Stimulation is the key to getting that wiring up. If there is no stimulation, then the wiring doesn't happen. So the wiring happens due to the stimulation. So you stimulate the child, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory. You stimulate the child using all the 5 senses. The child is picking up all that information and new wirings are being created. So that's basically what's happening in the first 6 years and the second 6 years and the third 6 years of the child's life. So the first 6 years of the child's life is the most critical. So this is when you want to keep on stimulating visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory. Okay. So before I continue on, I would like to give credit about this topic that we are discussing today. I got the idea of this topic from an article written by Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett. She's a neuroscientist and a psychologist at Northeastern University. So she wrote this article, and I found that, wow, this is something coming from neuroscience. Her area is neuroscience, and I like that because neuroscience is how our the wiring inside there is working. And what I'm doing is that I'm meta-stating it with neurosemantics of parenting. So I'd like to just mention about Dr. Lisa Barrett because she's the original author of this particular set of items that we'll be discussing this evening. Now, I'd like to continue on with this session this evening with a little story. And probably some of you might guess already when I say a little story. So it will, Franska is already laughing there. And this story just happened this morning. My daughter texted to me this story. So what happened this morning was my daughter, Shaima, she asked Az-Zahra, that's my grasshopper. Grasshopper, her name's Az-Zahra. Grandfather calls her Grasshopper. Now, Grasshopper's already 12 years old, and she's very good in the house, in the housework. She's very, very responsible and in that area, and also highly skilled. So this morning, Mama asked her, Az-Zahra, can you go and set up the wok for me so that she can cook something for breakfast? And Grasshopper was a little bit sleepy and was a little bit dreamy. So she went into the kitchen and dreamily looked into the wok and said, what do I do with the oil in the wok? How many of you got that? What do I do with the oil in the wok? Because she's so sleepy at that time. She couldn't get the words together. Instead of oil in the wok, she went oil in the ox. Now, let me ask you the question. The reason why I'm relating that story is that what would some parents do when the child is woozy in that way and started talking, well, you can say talking nonsense, right? Right? So how will you respond? Will you scold the child, hey, wake up and just do what I ask you to do? Or take the phone and text it to grandfather so grandfather can know it. Now, the reason why I'm relating that story is that it boils down to the state. And that's why before I go on into the seven specific things that we can do in order to help our children to become more flexible in their way of thinking, it's all about the states. If as a parent, the state that you are in with your child is the state of being authoritative, wanting to tell them, getting things right, uh, following orders, an event such as that will cause you to be angry and scold the child. Right? Now, what state was my daughter in when she noticed grasshopper doing that? And I noticed that these are the two core states that as parents you want to train yourself to go in every time that you are dealing with your child. These are the two primary states that I would highly encourage you to practice over and over to be in those states. States, I'm referring to your mental and emotional state. The two core states for parenting are the state of love and the state of joy. When you are interacting with your child from love and joy, that's when she does something silly like that, you laugh and you send a text to grandfather. Okay? So as we go through all these various points that Dr. Barrett mentioned in her article, I want you to, just for this hour or so we are together, I want you to put yourself into the state of love and joy. Be in this state of love and joy as we go through our discussion this evening, because as you put yourself into the state of love and joy, then you may begin to understand how to do it, and it will appear to be easy for you to do. If you are in other states, then what we are going to discuss this evening might appear very difficult to do. Because remember, to remind you, which something that you already know, parenting is a complex skill. It requires a lot of resources that you need to come in. When you are in the state of love and joy, to be able to take in the resources that you need for interacting and connecting and teaching your child and growing them becomes easy. Okay, so are you ready being in this state of love and joy? Okay, right. So let's move to the first point. The first point is be a gardener, not a carpenter. That is a metaphor. Okay. Jason, I'm not asking you to go out and start gardening out there. Okay. Be a gardener, not a carpenter. What it means here is that notice what carpenters do. My grandfather was a carpenter. He makes houses. He builds large buildings. The last house that he made, he was 70 years old. That was the last house that he made all by himself without any help. Okay. Now, what is meant over here, be a gardener, not a carpenter, because what a carpenter does is that he takes the raw materials. For example, if he builds a building out of wood, then he takes the wood. If the carpenter uses other materials, so what a carpenter does is takes the material and form the material according to what the carpenter wants. So that's what a carpenter does. However, a gardener help the plants, help the things to grow on their own. The gardener just cultivate the fertile landscape, just make the landscape fertile and let the plants grow on their own. And a skilled gardener can get away with wondrous things. I believe some of you have heard my giving this example. I studied my A levels in a small town in North Yorkshire called Harrogate. Harrogate, even though it's a small town, is known as the flower center of Europe, because every spring they'll host the Harrogate Flower Show. Growers from all over Europe will converge on Harrogate, and then they have that flower show. I think about 2 weeks flower show, so that buyers can come, look at what the growers have, and then make orders from there. Now, the expertise of the gardeners of Harrogate is such that, take into account that they have this show in early spring. The expertise of the gardeners is such that on the opening day of the Harrogate Flower Show, all the flowers bloom in Harrogate. So it means to say they have to start doing things in the cold of winter. So what they did was just to get the soil ready, and the flower will grow on their own. So this is what is meant by be a gardener, not a carpenter, because as parents, you can sculpt your child into something specific. You can sculpt your child to become a concert violinist. You can sculpt your child to become an Olympic swimmer. I hope we've lost the Olympic swimmer already. Now the question is that what the child wants? That's what you want. So that's what a carpenter does. However, the gardener is, as a parent, when you become that gardener, you just provide the environment for growth, for development, and the child will grow healthily, and the child will take whatever direction that the child takes. Okay. So when I noticed this first point, I recall a time when I was attending a seminar, huge crowd. The speaker on stage, John Heron, I remember his name until today, was speaking about him growing up in a small town in Italy just after the Second World War. His father was an American soldier, his mother was Italian, and right after the World War, his father was shipped back to America, leaving him and his mother to grow up in that small village in Italy. So his mother lived with his grandfather together. So John was mentioning that growing up in a small town in Italy, so he's just like any other Italian little boy, and he remembered when he was at the age of about 6 or 7 years old, he was playing hide and seek with a few of his friends. How many of you remember playing hide and seek? One of the most popular games that I still play with my grandchildren until today. They love playing hide and seek. So he was playing hide and seek with his friend. Now, one day, while playing hide and seek, he ran to the back of the house and he saw his grandfather. His grandfather was a stonemason. What he does is, like a carpenter, he makes sculptures out of stone. So he ran to the back of the house. He noticed that his grandfather was standing on a ladder. The ladder was leaning against a block of stone. And the block of stone was of no interest to a 6-year-old boy. So he just went and hide away. And that was that. Now, he said about 5 or so months later, again, while playing hide and seek, he ran to the back of the house to hide. Now, this time, after 5 months, is not a block of stone anymore because his grandfather was sculpting a statue of an angel. You know, like in Europe, the churches, they have all of these different statues. So his grandfather was finishing sculpting a statue of a stone angel, and it looked so beautiful. John was mentioning that he could see the every feather on the angel's wings, and the grandfather was chipping away around the eye area, and he looked as if the eyes were alive, and he was stunned. A 6-year-old, they get very, they go into an amazement in that. And he just stood there and asked his grandfather, grandfather, grandfather. No, this is his translation. Of course, he spoke in Italian. I won't attempt because I don't know how to speak Italian anyway. He asked, grandfather, grandfather, how do you manage to make such a beautiful statue of an angel? How do you manage to make such a beautiful statue of an angel? And his grandfather looked down at him, and because he was still on the ladder, looked down at him and just smiled at him and said to him, Johnny, Johnny. You see, Italian, they speak like that, right? Johnny, Johnny, spaghetti, macaroni, that kind of way of speaking. So his grandfather said to him, Johnny, Johnny, see, the angel is already there. I just take out what is not her. When your child comes to you, the child looks like a block of stone. So do you approach it like a carpenter, trying to make, I think I'll turn this into a footballer. Oh, I'll turn this into a swimmer. Oh, I'll turn this into... Or do you become like a gardener and think about, what kind of baby is inside here? I'll provide the environment and I'll see what comes out from this. So that's the first point. Be a gardener, not a carpenter. So I'll pause there. Anyone has any questions or any comments that you want to share? Go ahead. Just unmute yourself. Ah, the swimmer is there. I can see again. Anyone has any comments? Yeah.
When you mentioned this be a gardener, not immediately that story came to my mind. I was like, yeah, that the sculpture, the angel story. And then you told it.
Yeah. It's if by some coincidence you attempt to sculpt it according to what's inside there, then you're lucky and you'll get whatever it is that you want to sculpt out of it. However, if what's inside there is not according to your intention, you want to turn this child into a scientist. However, inside there is an artist. What happens is that you get neither an artist or a scientist. It doesn't work. So that's what being a gardener is all about. Just to prepare the fertile soil, give whatever stimulation that you can give to the child. For example, uh, uh, grasshopper. She's so active physically before the age of before the age of before she can uh, before she can what's the word before she can walk, she's already climbing. So that's how physically active that she was. So noticing that she's physically active, then I introduce physical activity for her, and she just go for that. Now when I introduce a lot of physical activity for her, not with the intention of turning her into a sports person or gymnast, I just want to let her explore that area of her potential. So every child comes with whatever potential that they have. So be the gardener to prepare them for what they are going to have in this world. Okay. So let's move to the second point over here. The second point is talk and read to your child a lot. Now, research shows that even when children are just a few months old and don't understand the meanings of words, their brains still make use of them. Because when you use words, words are basically symbols. Words are verbal symbols to describe the movie that we have in our mind. So when we give them words, we are giving them the building blocks to bring that movie from their mind into the physical reality, because the moment we say things, we are bringing our thoughts into physical reality. So by using words, we are giving them uh, the bricks and mortar that they can use to create buildings or whatever structure that they want to build outside here. So when you give those words to them, they keep hearing them, it builds the neural foundation for later learning, the pathway in their brain. So the more words they hear, the greater the effect. It is like giving your child a toolbox that has, say, 5,000 tools inside there. They can use many different tools to use. If you don't use words, you don't read, you don't talk to your child, the child ends up with only 50 tools, and they can uh, express themselves maybe using a few sounds. The. I mean, because they don't have the symbols to use to represent what's in their mind. So by reading to them, they are bringing those words into their mind. And to teach them emotion words, sad, happy, frustrated, is especially beneficial because they experience it in the body, and we introduce those words. So about uh, so this is where a little bit of mind reading comes in. The child wants something and the child doesn't get it, and may be upset. So you can prompt the child. So how? So when you didn't get that, I'm sorry, you didn't get that. How are you feeling now? Are you feeling upset? Are you feeling angry? So beginning to introduce those words, that will allow the child to begin to express themselves later. The more they know, the more flexibly they can act. Now, the other thing that I just want to mention over here is that do not underestimate your child's ability to understand. I say that because I noticed with our youngest daughter, Sophia, uh, until today, I find it still remarkable that at the age of 2 months old, I'm not talking about 2 years old, at the age of 2 months old, she was already choosing what clothes to wear. So we were using words and symbols. Her sister, every time, bathe her, puts her on the bed, before dressing her up, just takes two dresses. Fia, Fia nak pakai yang mana? Yang ni ke yang ni? Yang ni ke yang ni? And she'll stop. And how And at the age of 2 months, Sophia doesn't have any words yet. So she communicates with her eyes. She look at one and the other and look at the one that she wants to wear and stop. We discovered it's not coincident or accidental, because one day she went first one dress, another dress, and then she looked beside her because there's another dress, a red dress beside her. She didn't want to do that. She want that one. So when you use words, you are building it already. So start talking to your child when your child is in your womb. The child can hear when she's in the womb. The child can still hear. So that's the second point. Talk and read to your child a lot, because words are the building blocks. We live in two worlds, the inner world and the outer world. In order for us to actualize things in the outer world, we need to bring what's inside outside. And words are the interface between the inner and the outer world. So when we have a rich vocabulary of words, to be able to bring those out, we'll be able to create a rich and an empowering world outside here. So that second point is read, talk and read to your child a lot. So that's the second point. Anyone has got any questions or comments that you would like to bring? You can just unmute yourself. You want to ask anything, or you want to say anything? Okay. So it will be greater challenge for parents who do not have so many words. I mean, it's not about man or woman. There are men who like to talk a lot. There are women who like to talk a lot. There are women who don't like to talk a lot. There are women who like to talk a lot. It is not gender specific. However, as a parent, you want to be deliberately talking and reading. So probably I would say the saving grace for me was that my children likes me to tell stories before they go to bed. So storytelling at night is a good time that they are listening to things, and then just getting all that vocabulary. Okay, so that's the second one. So let's go to the third point, which is explain things. Explain things. Now, it can be exhausting when your child is constantly asking why. Why? Why, mama? Why? Some of you, if your child is still small, you've not come to that phase yet. But those of you who've gone through that phase, sweating every day. And for me, the defining moment in my life, I say that I keep telling to people that I started learning from little children for the last 24 years, 20 odd years, because it was when Sophia, our youngest daughter, was about 4, not even 5 years old, about 4 years old. She asked the why question, and that why question just stumped me. So children will ask the why question. The why question Sophia asked me was, Daddy, why is fire hot? That changed my life. So it can be exhausting when your child is constantly asking why. But when you explain something to them, the why to them, you've taken a new and novel world from the world. Yeah, you're creating something new into their world. And what happens is that they're asking about why of this. When you give the answer to it, Now they can see, oh, I can predict. If I know this, I can get this. So brains work more efficiently when they predict well, because why will also show to them about cause and effect. So answer to the best of your ability, and you need to avoid answering the why with because I told you so. I told you so will get them to obey if they are scared of you. Okay, you will get them to obey. However, it doesn't build their brain. They need to know the why, because children who understand reasons to behave in a particular way, they've already eaten 8 bananas and they want another banana to eat. When you give them a reason why you cannot give the ninth banana today, then they are able to use that information to regulate their action. So explaining things to them gives them the reason for doing something. Now, hear this. Children raised with reason becomes reasonable. And the reason why children may argue, may be angry at you, they may not listen to reason, is because you've not been reasoning with them. So if you want to have reasonable children from small, give them reason. It could be as simple as I don't know, 1 year old Xander is playing in the in that bathtub, and you you take uh, uh, the shower gel and you lather his back, and just give him the reason. Oh, the reason why mama is lathering your back is so that we can get it clean, because shower gel helps your body to get clean. Those simple things, because what the child is doing, taking each and every point and stacking them up. Yeah? They are just organizing all of that information. And I believe many of you parents have come across situation whereby you give one reason to them one day, and the next day, the child does something and gives back that reason to you, and you just, oh, he's listening or she's listening. Yes, they are listening. Okay, so this is also part of what in neurosemantics and NLP we call a meta program. The meta program of causation. Children, when they come into this world, they may have not created this meta program. They have this uh, costless meta program or magical meta program. Those of you who have come to my class, you remember when I mentioned to you about Pocoyo. Those of you who do not know yet, Pocoyo is my grandson, brother to Grasshopper. Uh, yes, Christine. Uh, I, I will be sending you the recording. No worries if you're not hearing it well enough. Now, uh, he at one point he was about 2 or 3 years old. He loved drinking kalpis so much. What in his mind, what he notices is that he wakes up in the morning, goes to the fridge, open the fridge door, and you have kalpis inside there, and just drink the kalpis, and he's happy with that. Until one day, Grasshopper noticed that after he drank his kalpis, he opened the fridge and put it back in the fridge. And as you all know, Grasshopper is a bunch of humor. So she first laughed at her brother and asked him, Pocoyo, why did you put the empty bottle in the fridge? And Pocoyo answered her, tomorrow you'll be full again. Because as far as he's concerned, open the fridge, full bottle of Calpis. So no matter if I put an empty bottle, tomorrow is going to be full again. So little children, they have this costless way of thinking in terms of causation. For example, uh, how many of you parents, your child, uh, I don't know what their age are, how many of you parents, your child know that you're married? Because as far as the child is concerned, this man exists, this woman exists. Oh, it's okay. I'm okay with that. And then suddenly they realize, oh, married. What's that? And then this older man, he's calling grandfather. And one day, his mama says, do you know that grandfather is mama's daddy? And the boy will go, no. Because to them, these people just exist. The moment you give them reason, connections, then that helps to build that. So by giving reason, by explaining things, you are bringing your children in terms of the causation meta program from costless to linear to complex to personal, going on into external, magical, and correlation, knowing that things happen in many different ways. And that allows them to predict what's going to happen in their world once they know that there are causes to what happens in this physical universe. Okay, so that's the third point. So anyone has got any comments or questions that you want to ask with respect to this third point? Are you good? Okay, then let's move to the next point, which is the fourth point is describe the activity, not the person. This is something that sometimes we parents, we make the mistake, something happen, we label the person uh, rather than what happened. So for example, let's say your son smacks your daughter in the head. Now don't call him a bad boy because bad boy is describing the person. So be specific. You say something like, stop hitting your sister. It hurts her and makes her feel annoyed. Tell her you are sorry. So you are describing the behavior, not the person. Okay? Another example is that, for example, praising your son or your daughter. Don't call your daughter a good girl. Instead, comment on her actions. You made a good choice, not slugging your brother back. Because this kind of wording will help her brain to build more useful concepts about her actions and herself. So this is what in neurosemantics and NLP we talk about person and behavior, two different phenomena. A person, what we discussed last week, is a person is good and wonderful unconditionally. This builds the unconditional self-esteem. Now, behavior is subject to competency. I want to do something, and because I'm not competent, then I may get the wrong result. Okay? So the example that I've been giving to my friends who've come over to our program is that the example of Pocoyo, when he was about 1.5 years old, he had a little brother. Okay. Now, when he had this little brother, just fresh coming out from the hospital, about 2 days old, he went and climbed on Yusuf and bodily on, and Yusuf was just a tiny little baby at that time. And when we saw that, we quickly took him away from that. And we took him away from Yusuf. He cried the most pitiful cry. Because his intention was to hug his little brother. And why did he do that? Because that's how he hugs his elder sister. Whenever he wants to hug Grasshopper, he'll just climb on her sister. But her sister is bigger than her. Younger brother is tiny little thing. So the behavior, there's nothing wrong with the behavior. It's just that he doesn't have the competency yet to know that that way of hugging can kill the younger brother. So when our children behave in ways, do not label the behavior. Sorry, do not label the person. You are good or bad. You describe what did you do and how it worked. Okay. So that's why last week we talked about when when your child does something good, you acknowledge that behavior. Do not link that behavior with person. Doing something good means you're a good boy. So does it mean that if I don't do something good, therefore I'm a bad boy? And just because I'm not competent, therefore I'm a bad boy? So this is where we want to create that demarcation between person and behavior. So describe the behavior, not the person. So any questions there or comments? Are you good? Is that? Uh, Christine, I'm not so sure. You said recently I'm experiencing when I describe or explain the action, behavior, advise my kid saying no advice, please. I am confused.
Um, so, um, like, like as you said, I am trying to let them understand or let them notice that cause or effect about explaining or describing what happened, that action. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead. Go ahead. I
Okay.
can hear you.
So when I explain the actions or behavior, what's the result? I try to explain it, not like you are a bad boy or you're not doing good or not labeling. But recently, they are my kids saying like too much talking or mommy, please don't give us advice again or without advice can you just hear us or something like that rejection I'm receiving from them. So I was wondering, even if I am explaining or just focusing on the behavior, they will get that sense of defense. So how do I be flexible with that? Not too much explaining or not too much labeling.
Okay.
Have to find the balance.
Yeah. Thank you, Christina. How old are they?
10 and 7 years old boys.
Okay. Yeah. So probably the one thing that I just want to mention to you, especially when the child is already 10 years old, um, uh, we covered this in the previous session, the framework for communicating with our children from at one end of the spectrum is the communicating using telling. The other end of the spectrum, coaches use the communication using facilitation. We facilitate their thinking to come to a certain idea instead of telling
Okay.
them the idea. So
Uh-huh.
especially with a 10-year-old, because a 10-year-old has already gained quite a large amount of information.
Yeah.
So for you to tell that information again, oh, come on, I know that
Yeah,
already.
exactly.
So now, and just know that a 10-year-old has not reached the thinking level of an adult brain yet. So needs to have that reinforcement. So what you do is now, instead of using telling of that information, now go into facilitation using questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. Okay, so thank you, Christine, for that. So let's move to the next point. Yes, the next point is help your children to copy you. Because we human beings, we learn by copying. In NLP, we call them modeling. So, uh, and and when you do things, do them deliberately. Now, bringing in the previous point when about explaining things, when you do something and you explain what you are doing, it helps them to copy. For example, you are cooking. The child is down there noticing you are cooking. As far as the child is concerned, oh, mommy is up there and doing something. The child cannot see fully. So, so what you do is that from the vantage point where you are, or if you can bring the child so that the child can see you, oh, mommy is putting in some oil, heating up the oil so the oil can be hot. Okay, now mommy is putting some onions to get the onion hot. So when you do and explain, it helps the child to copy. Children learn naturally by watching and playing, and most of all by copying adults, because copying or modeling, it's an efficient way to learn and it gives them a sense of mastery. So when you are sweeping the floor, give them a small broom to sweep the floor. When you are gardening outside, give them some a garden spade or a toy lawnmower and let them imitate that. And and for children, imitating the work that you do is fun. So let them enjoy doing that because they are learning that. I noticed with uh, my daughter, she likes to keep her house clean, and the vacuum cleaner is never in a storeroom. The vacuum cleaner will be somewhere because they live in an apartment. It will be somewhere close by that they can take easily. So after meal, they'll vacuum the house. After some activities, they'll vacuum the house, and the children are just noticing that. And the funny thing was when Pocoyo was only about, I think, 2 or 3 years old, he started to take ownership of the vacuum cleaner. His space is the space between the armchair and the TV. That's where his play area was. There's a carpet in front of that. So whenever he noticed mama or papi vacuuming, when the vacuum cleaner comes close to his carpet, he'll go up and take the vacuum cleaner from mama or papi and he'll vacuum that area. Because as far as concerned, if mama can do it, I can do it too. So make it easy for them to copy you. Okay, so that's the next point. Any questions or comments on that? This week we are just going through 6 points about what are the things that you can do that can help to develop your children's neural pathway. Okay, so let's move on to the final point. This final point is called to applaud agency. Yeah. Children love to try things on their own without help. When they don't know how to do things, they want to do it by themselves. When they know how to do it, then they want you to do it for them. So right now, when the child doesn't know how to feed himself, that's when the child will resist you from feeding him because he wants to learn how to do it. Later on, he'll give it back to you to do that for him. Now, for them learning how to get dressed, learn, even though sometimes they put their trousers front to back or whatsoever, is just like is learning a new skill. And this is good. You want them to develop that sense of agency. Yeah? Sense of agency refers to the feeling of control over actions and the consequences. So they want to take control of the actions because of that. Because by taking control of the actions, now they can determine the results that they get in their lives. Now, even when actions look like misbehaving, it may be the child's attempt to understand the effects on the world. Uh, I don't know, Marilyn, if Xander has started throwing things. It's not to bother you or whatsoever. He's experimenting. Okay, for example, when your child uh, you give some grapes and then she takes the grapes and throws it on the floor. And notice when they do that, they look at it, they see falling on the floor. And then you pick it up and you put it on the table and say, stop throwing things on the floor. She take it up and, yeah. So they are not doing that to, to make you angry or whatsoever. But probably, most likely, that little girl may be learning something about the physics of gravity. She's learning that her actions has an effect on the world around her. So if your son or your daughter starts throwing things on the floor, just pick it up and put it on the table. Let her try again and again and again. Because they are learning to take control, to take control of their actions. Because now they're beginning to see, I do something, it caused something to happen. So they are learning how to manipulate their body in a way to create a certain outcome in their lives. And knowing when to step in and when to step back can be challenging. So to be always present, guiding your child and taking care of their need so that they don't learn to do things themselves. For example, if you kick in too early, they'll not learn that. I gave you the example of grasshopper learning how to climb before she can walk. Now, climbing can be dangerous. So before she can walk, so she must be about 6 months old. She started climbing the grill. Yeah, and it can be dangerous. She might fall. So, as a grandparent, what do I do? If I were to stop her, then I am preventing her from learning. So, all that I'm thinking about, how can I prevent her from hurting herself? So, whenever she starts climbing, I just go and sit below there and get ready. If she were to fall, then I can catch her. And I don't even prevent her from falling because she needs to feel that sensation of only then she'll learn the danger of falling. If I hold her when she's climbing, she'll not learn the danger. She needs to fall. So all that I do is that to prevent her from hurting herself from fall when she falls. I don't prevent her from falling. And because of that, she becomes very skilled in doing that. So what you do is that when you give them the ability, the freedom to experiment things, this builds self-confidence. Because now they know, I do this, I get this. Ooh. And from a neurosemantics perspective, it is helping the child build another matrix for themselves. This is the matrix of power. Earlier, we talked about the matrix of self, that is self-esteem, unconditional esteem, that builds the matrix of self. Now, by learning how to do things for themselves, helps them to build the matrix of power. That is self-confidence. Okay, so those are the things that I have for us to discuss this evening. Five, six things all together. One is be a gardener, not a carpenter. 2, talk and read to your child a lot. 3, explain things. 4, describe the activity, not the person. 5, help your children to copy. And the 6th one there was applaud agency, meaning to say whenever that they do something, they are able to do things and get the result that they want. Applaud them, congratulate them, because that helps to build their self-confidence. Okay, so that's about it. Anyone has got any comments or questions with respect to what we've just discussed for the last hour or so? Are you good? Okay. So if you're all good, then before we end, yes?
So about the questioning, facilitating thinking, thinking skill. What would you prefer, like, about the questions when I ask, like, what do you think, or what's in your mind? Sometimes they don't really know what they are thinking, or they can't explain it. So how do I facilitate this questioning?
So again, this is age sensitive. Age sensitive meaning to say it also refers to the vocabulary. Sometimes they cannot explain because they don't have the vocabulary. For example, when Pocoyo was about 4 or 5 years old, he just cannot contain his emotions. It's just that he doesn't have the words to say it. Yeah. So whenever he gets uptight or upset about something, then the facilitative process that my daughter brought for Pocoyo was asking by using a menu list, because he doesn't have a word. What I mean by menu list is that she asked him, Muhammad, how is it that you are feeling? Are you feeling frustrated? Are you feeling angry? Are you feeling excited? Are you feeling sad? And he just go, angry, because he cannot find the word. So you give him a multiple choice kind of thing. And then my daughter would ask him, okay, so you're angry. Are you angry at mama, or are you angry at papi, or are you angry at kakak? So this is facilitative process. Instead of making a conclusion and telling him, you ask questions to get to understand what's inside his mind. It's just that at certain age in life, they do not have the words yet, the vocabulary to explain what's in their mind. So to facilitate in that way.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. So anyone else? You've got any other points? So if you don't mind, since there are no other points, I would like to go through, invite everyone. If you want to say something, I'll start off with at the bottom of my screen there, Max. Max, do you have anything to say before we end our session in a short while? Max? Okay, we'll skip that and move to Izani. Izani?
I'm just listening. It's okay. Next. Thank you. Thank you.
Are you good? Okay.
Good, good.
Yeah. Okay, so Sue, you have anything to say before we end?
No, thank you. It's very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Ethan, do you have anything to say? Ethan Chu, you are muted currently. I'll move to Norliza. How are you doing?
Okay, thank you, sir. Good sharing.
Alhamdulillah. Okay. And Yang Lin, is there anything you'd like to say? No? And moving on to Lim, is there anything that you like to say?
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you. It was really, really informative. I'm sorry because I've got a little kid here, so it's a bit crazy. So I'm trying to hear as much as I can. So I'll look forward to your recording.
Yes, I will
Thank
send it
you.
to you.
Hi.
Thank you.
All right.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
And Faisal, would you like to say something? Thank you for being here, Faisal.
Thank you for the sharing for this evening. Looking forward for the next course if there is any.
Okay, thank you. And Najiha?
Thank you very much, Mr. Masuki. I've learned a lot tonight.
Okay, thank you. Right. Christine, is there anything that you would like to say before we end?
Yeah, that the course was very informative, and I've got my answers. That's where I was confusing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Good that. Good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And Guat Ching, any comments from you before we end?
Nice story section. Thank you, Mazuki.
Thank you. Marilyn?
I actually have a question. Sorry, it didn't ask earlier, just occurred to me.
Ah,
Regarding the number 2, the talk and read to your child a lot, right? Does it matter what we say? Must it be like intentionally positive things, or can we just talk, just like whatever my train of thought is, can I just, verbalize that to him, or must it be intentionally, things that, like positive or yeah.
Yep. It has to be with whatever that you say it with intention. And the intention is to develop the child.
Okay.
Okay. So if it is not going to be helpful, not going to be resourceful, then better not say that. Because, and thank you for asking this question, because I miss about saying, when you talk to your child and explain to your child about how things are happening, you're also training the child to think in a certain way. That's the meta-stating process, to help the child to meta-state positively about things. Because remember, we talk about the human's meaning-making process. There is no quality control. So by talking to your child, your train of thoughts that is positive, it teaches the child to think in that particular way. Right? So that's why you notice some people, they tend to think negatively about themselves. Some people, they think positively about themselves because they have learned that train of thoughts from someone around them. So beware of what you say to Xander. He'll follow you.
Yes. Thank you for that. Okay. Yeah. Well, I've not just been blah 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 bringing out to him. So yeah. So I think I'm on the right track, and I keep the negative thoughts to myself. So
get into that state of loving and
yes.
And joyful. Speak from that state.
Yes, and I also kind of like brainwash him a little bit sometimes. I hope I'm not being that carpenter.
And Jason, do you have anything to say?
No, I'm good.
You're good? Oh, now I see Deirdre down there. Hi, Deirdre. So coming to the end of the session, Deirdre,
Use this thing.
Hmm?
Mark's back. He's helped me.
Hi, Mr. Mazuki.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
Good, thank you. Just got back from work.
Okay, okay. So any comments or questions? We are just wrapping up.
And we're all good from here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And last but not least, Franska, any comment?
I enjoyed the session today. I also enjoyed the question from Marilyn and Christine. Thank you.
Thank you. So before we end, just to inform you that I am organizing a short course on parenting that will be on Tuesday, every Tuesday in the week, in the month of January. Yeah, actually, those of you who know me, this is the first time I'm doing a program on parenting from the neurosemantics perspective. And Deirdre, I will have to say that it was driven by you because you were the one asking me about such a program. And then I said, okay, I'll just bring it up. So this is the neurosemantics of parenting. So glad to have you on board for that program in January. Looking forward to seeing you there. So those of you who are not aware about that program, I've just put in the link to the program inside the chat box. So you can just click that link and then you can go and go through that. Okay. So with that, everyone, really appreciate your being here. For next session, next Friday is Christmas. So I was wondering, oh dear, it's Christmas and it's also somebody's birthday anyway. So,
Where's Santa?
yes. So we'll skip next Friday. We'll meet on the following Friday. That will be on the 1st of January. So I look forward to seeing you in the new year. So with that, thank you
for doing that.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Okay.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Assalamualaikum.
Bye.
Inshallah, we'll meet again. Bye.
Bye. Bye, Jane.
Bye, Jane.
Bye-bye.
Tell you.
Okay, say bye,
I want to
Jane.
tell you.
Okay, say bye.
Bye, Jane.
Say bye-bye, everyone. Good night.